Do you like my new desk? It's by a company called Jarvis. And no, Jarvis did not give this to me for nothing. I paid for this desk and it's pretty awesome actually. Automated up and down, standing desk. So I have to listen at my desk to music and I have a new black box on here. What is it? So this is the Altair G1 from AURALIC. It's a headphone amplifier. Headphone drive comes from this 1/4" socket here. And behind it sits a pair of op amps, which apparently, according to AURALIC, give us 20% more power than the previous version of the Altair. But if we go to the AURALIC website, we can't find, well, I couldn't find the power rating on their website. But what it did tell me was that the output impedance here is 5 ohms. So that means we can't use low impedance IEMs with this. So instead I've been using 2 pairs of full-size headphones, Meze Empyrean and MrSpeakers Aeon Open Flow. Now the Wi-Fi antenna here and this cover art display on the screen here tells us that there is a streamer inside here, there is, but I'm looking at the back panel and there are no digital outputs. So we can't connect this to an external DAC. That means there must be a DAC inside, and there is. I believe it's built around the ESS 9038 Q2M, or is it 2QM? Anyway, that DAC inside here for conversion. So let's turn it around and have a look at the back. So on the back panel, we've got a whole raft of digital inputs. We've got AES EBU, coax, Toslink, USB, that's self-powered USB. We've got a socket for a hard drive connection. I'll come back to that later. Ethernet, which is my preference for connection stability, not necessary for sound quality. Generally with AURALIC products, I tend to lean towards Wi-Fi on sound, but that's really splitting hairs. So I've been using the USB socket on the back to connect my MacBook for daily things like listening to SoundCloud mixes, watching YouTube videos, and I could connect a Raspberry Pi streamer to the SPDIF socket here, but I don't do that because only the streaming inputs on this Altair G1 enjoy the hardware correction and the memory caching of what AURALIC call their Tesla platform. So that's their hardware and firmware platform inside. So what do we mean by Tesla? Well, I'm not talking about Nikola Tesla or the car company. I'm talking about the streaming board inside the Altair. A lot of streaming hardware companies buy their boards from third-party manufacturers. And AURALIC have not done that. They've developed their own from the ground up, and they call it their Tesla platform. It does a whole bunch of digital signal cleanup, which is useful. So the streaming inputs on here still do Roon, Bluetooth, AirPlay, Spotify Connect. Why do I have so much problem doing this in my hands? Anyway, those 4 other streaming inputs exist inside this box. So not only have AURALIC designed their own hardware platform, they've coded their own software platform, which includes an app called Lightning DS. And this is it here running on the iPad. It is iOS only. So if you're using Android, for the time being, you're out of luck, I'm afraid. Although I think with more expensive models, not this one, but I think with the bigger Vega DACs, AURALIC are giving away an iPad with those for a limited time, I think. Anyway, whatever. So this is Lightning DS. It integrates Qobuz here, Tidal, then there's Open Home, so UPnP streaming. It also does internet radio. Yeah, those things. How many is that? 4? Tidal, Qobuz, Open Home, internet radio, right? Again, with my weird hand movement. 4 things inside this app. So why would we use Lightning DS and not Roon? Well, Lightning DS is free. You don't have to pay anything extra once you get this streamer. But also it does multi-room, and this is probably the most important thing for very, very nerdy audiophiles. I think that when streaming over the network, so from my server in the kitchen, Lightning DS sounds just a little bit better, just a little bit more relaxed and easeful than running Roon. I mean, it's a hair's width margin, but it's still there. And if you're wondering what server I'm running in my kitchen to do that, I'm using Roon running on an Intel NUC that also runs Windows. And then for the UP&P serving, I'm using Minim server. So the Altair G1 is a network streamer, it's a DAC, it's a headphone amplifier. It also has analog outputs on the back for connection to a hi-fi system, for loudspeakers or for powered loudspeakers. But it has a party trick. It has a very cool party trick in that if we take the lid off, I'm not going to do it here, but if we take this lid off, we can fit a hard drive inside. So it becomes a server and a streamer. Now, if you don't want to do that, there is a sort of halfway house. We can add our own external hard drive, and then we can connect it to that HDD socket we saw earlier on the back here. And then the Lightning DS platform will index that so we can stream it and control it using iOS devices. And it becomes a self-contained server streaming solution. So we don't need a server in the kitchen. This is all that we need. And obviously if we put a hard drive inside, it can be even more minimal. But I think this is great. We just have 2 boxes or 1 box. Pretty cool, huh? Now, normally when a manufacturer sends me a network streamer, their inbuilt app isn't great. So BlueOS is one exception. Lightning DS is the other exception. They're not quite as good as Roon. Lightning DS comes the closest to Roon's sort of comprehensive magazine layout, but it's not far off, and it's awesome for a free app. So I've used both, and I built a playlist in Qobuz, in Spotify, and in Tidal. This is a Tom Waits track as part of my Tidal playlist, and that playlist is music that I used in this review, and those playlists will be linked in the description box below. So please check the description box for those links. So I've been listening to this Altair G1 for the last 4 or 5 weeks on this desktop with the desk moved in front of the window here. How does it sound? Well, I could tell you it has very deep and textured bass, or that the soundstage is wide and tall and deep. But in doing that, I could be describing pretty much any component at all. It's only when we introduce comparisons to similarly priced products do we work out how much of a good or not so good performer the AURALIC is. But also, my job is not just to kind of assess it and say, yeah, this is good or this is bad or highly recommended. Not a fan of highly recommended. It's not really about my opinion, it's about the differences in sound quality between 2 items. So I have the Brooklyn Bridge here. This is a similarly priced DAC streamer preamp. This also has balanced headphone outputs on the front. It has a phono stage inside, but you can't put a hard drive inside. You can attach a hard drive to the back, but I think that's limited in some way. I can never get it to work quite as well as I can with the AURALIC. The streaming board in here comes from Converse Digital. That means the app that we have to use to control it, if we're not using Roon, is the M-Connect app. And the less I say about the M-Connect app, the better. It's okay, it's fine, but it's not like Lightning DS, nowhere near as good, and certainly not as good as Roon. So anyway, I compared the Brooklyn Bridge to the AURALIC Altair G1, and this is what I found out. So the Mytek device, its sound has a stronger emphasis on cleanliness and transparency. But in doing so, its mid-bass is also slightly lean, or it's leaner than the AURALIC. When we cut over to the AURALIC, we get a slightly richer, plumper mid-bass, which paints music with a higher center of gravity, and it makes it sound a little bit fuller. And that also adds a little extra dollop of richness, or cream if you like. I know some of you don't like my food analogies, but I'm putting cream in my tea if I want to. And the AURALIC is also the more easeful sounding of the two. It's a closely fought race, but given that they are both all-in-one streamers and DACs, I'm going to give the sense of ease to the AURALIC on this one, just. So these qualities, so a smoother, richer top end, a fuller mid-bass, really help the AURALIC better communicate a sense of tone. It's a game of tones. So again, with small deltas, the Mytek gives us slightly better detail retrieval and therefore more textual information. I'll pause for the ambulance or the police car. And however, the AURALIC gives us more finesse, more delicacy, maybe it's more coloured, I don't know, but it just seems to be more intimate in some ways. Maybe the treble isn't quite as spicy as it is with the Brooklyn Bridge, but it just feels a little bit cozier. But where we might call into question some of these very small differences between these two units is when we listen to the different digital filters available in the menu system on the AURALIC that actually introduces quite a pronounced difference to the sound quality. So incisive, for example, sounds very different to smooth. So I prefer the incisive filter with the Meze headphones and the smooth one with the MrSpeakers. And I was quite surprised at, how much of a difference these filters make. And I think, for me anyway, the filters were more impactful on what I heard than they are with the Brooklyn Bridge. So it's a bit like trying to hit two moving targets in comparing these two. I think my conclusions hold, but it's hard to, you can't possibly compare all filters on one device versus all filter combinations on another device, because then you're looking at 16 possible comparisons, or maybe more, maybe 25 or 36. It just depends on how many filters are on each. I also spent a few days playing with these two DAC streamers into these two active speakers behind me. And I guess it will come as no surprise that the Kii, more expensive speaker, more resolving than the ELAC. And the ELAC sounds considerably warmer than the Kii does. I think Olaf heard this last week when we were swapping them out for the shit video. But I would say that the Mytek Brooklyn Bridge is a better fit for that warmer ELAC, whereas the Altair G1, its balanced outputs into the back of the Kii Three produced a more balanced sound than did the Mytek. I mean, with the keys, I would still probably put a normal pre in between. I'm just trying to explain this to give you a sense of the component matching necessities that go on when you're putting together a hi-fi system. So it's important to know the basic sound qualities of a hi-fi component before you hook it into something else. So the Mytek is very, very transparent, very clean, very well extended, especially at the top end. And the AURALIC is a little bit cozy, a bit more intimate, a bit nicer, a bit kinder to shittier recordings. So you have to pick which one works best for you and your gear. So if you want balanced headphone drive or MM and MC phono staging, you're still going to need to go for the Brooklyn Bridge. But if you want a more elegant sounding solution and elegant physical solution, so just the streamer, DAC and headphone amp and an external hard drive or an internal hard drive, you would go for the Altair G1 and you'd save a few $100 in the process. But there's more. So inside the more advanced settings of the Altair G1 is this Resampler Engine. So we can upsample our content, so say Redbook, which is the most standard format, we can upsample it all the way up to 352.8. So that's pretty useful, but there's more than that, because if we scroll down, We've got a parametric EQ, so if we want to do some EQ adjustments to compensate for room anomalies, we can do that. But there's also this thing here for boundary compensation for speakers, so we can tell it, you know, how far our speakers are away from the wall and how much gain we want to apply. These advanced settings really set this unit apart from the competition. So I love my new Jarvis work desk, and as you can see, I've got the AURALIC ALTAIR G1 set in the left-hand corner. It's always within reach, and I find the color screen extremely useful because I don't always have to go to the app to make changes to playback or to settings, because that color screen, that volume knob doubles as a control for moving between inputs, for changing more advanced settings. So it's an all-in-one complete system. I don't need to stream from anywhere else in the house. So that's great. I find this product probably a little bit too big for a desk of this size. It's not Kallax-Fi, whereas the Brooklyn Bridge is. But this feels like a more accomplished product. It looks nicer, it feels nicer. And about a month ago, I reviewed the DCS Bartok, which I absolutely loved. That was a network streamer, a DAC, and a headphone amp all in one. But it was much more expensive than this AURALIC unit. But this AURALIC helps me not miss that DCS unit quite as much, and I call that a big win. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below here. Also down below here, I think if you're watching on a phone, you'll have to click a little triangle thing to expand it. That is the description box. That's where I put lots of extra info about many of the things that you see in this video. Like this thing, many of you are still asking about this, that will be in the description box, as will playlists. If you like this channel, please consider subscribing, even though I did make a very, very bad dad joke today. Not going to apologize for that. So if you did not cringe too hard at that, please subscribe to this channel. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching. I spent ages thinking that one up. It's pretty good, right? A game of tones.